Woohoo. Hey everybody, this is Jessica Porter from Crossword Reviews and of course author Sherry Ficklin, and she is with us again. I think this is maybe the fourth time that you've been on,
Fourth,
I think,
yeah.
or fifth, something like that. You just live here.
That's right. I
Yes.
live in your bookshelves.
Well, now you are. Oh, and there goes my phone. All right, so of course, everybody, as you know, you will be able to win some yummy books once they get here.
Yes.
My shipment decided to go tour around Miami without me. Look, your book was on. You were on tour and you just didn't know it. You were in Florida.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah. So it floated around Miami for a while, and it is now back on its way back to Sherry. So as soon as it gets back there, she will resend it, and I will have the giveaway. But one book I do have for the giveaway is here. It's Playing with Fire, and then the other one will be for the book that apparently I don't have. Oh, that's right, because I don't have it in print yet. Duh. Is of course book 3 in the Stolen Empire series, Queen of Always. This is actually book 1. So you'll win both book 1 and book 2. Or book 3, excuse me.
That's right.
All right. So I am just going to let you introduce all your stuff and yourself. And I'm going to turn off all my volume on all this crap. All right. Go. You're good.
Hey, guys. I'm Sherry Ficklin. I'm the author of the Stolen Empire series, Queen of Someday, Queen of Always, and Queen of Tomorrow. And recently, I just released my first in a new series, which is a contemporary mystery YA series, the #Hacker series, which is book 1, Playing with Fire. And I'm actually really excited because book 2, they're actually pushing them really close together. So book 2 actually comes out November 30th in ebook. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm just really glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I love coming by. You guys are so much fun.
Woo-hoo.
And my microphone works this time. So I'm like, yeah, bonus.
That is always a plus.
It is.
All right. So we will just start in on questions. And I actually, as I was reading through everything, I wrote down questions as I was reading.
Nice.
So, and then a couple other people submitted questions, since apparently I guess that you can't comment on YouTube until it goes, like, after it's done taping, which I did not know that. So.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
There you go. Learn something new every day.
Yeah. Okay. So the first set of questions is actually for Losing Logan, which I finally sat down and read, and it was awesome. Just so you know.
Thank you. It's still my favorite of all my books. It's still my favorite.
And then when I finished Queen of Always, I forgot, how did Losing Logan end? So I'm standing in the bedroom and I'm reading the epilogue and I'm crying, and my husband walks in. He's like, "No, are you all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. It's just so happy." And he's like, "You're crying because it ended happily." And I'm like, "Yes."
Nice.
All right. So the first question is, why did you choose to have her family military based?
My family was military based. Growing up, my dad was a Marine. It's a kind of a tradition in my family. All back since we came to this country, they've all been military, and so it was just how I grew up. So when I initially started the story, I just really wanted to draw sort of from some of my own experiences as a military kid, just what it was like. So that's kind of where that came from, which is amazing because her life is really nothing at all like mine. I wish I was, half as interesting as Ferris, but I'm definitely not.
All right. The next question is, describe Ferris in 3 words.
Smart, sarcastic, and probably brave. I think she's got that really unique ability that most teenagers don't have, that she's really comfortable in her own skin. And she really doesn't give a whole lot of crap about what anybody thinks about her, which I just love. My daughter's very much that way. I was not as a teenager, so it's really interesting for me to sort of see it from another side.
Okay. The next question is quotes. There were a few quotes in here that people wanted to know more about. So the first one, apparently, which I should have bookmarked these before this. Let's see. The first one is on page 23, but it doesn't tell me what it is. They didn't write what the quote was. They just put the page number.
I'm trying to see now. Do I have a copy of that over here on my shelf? Probably. It's playing with fire, yes? Or are we still on Logan?
No, it's still losing Logan. Maybe it's keep flapping your lips and you'll spend the rest of your afterlife haunting hipsters at Starbucks.
That could be. That's one of my favorites. You know, that actually came from my writers group. I have this really fun writers group. We call ourselves the Tuesday Muses because we don't actually write anything. And they are absolutely the most hilarious bunch of people that I've ever been around. And so a lot of the dialogue from Logan came from or was inspired by the people in that group, particularly my friend Amy, who's just, I mean, she's just one of those people that's just super quick and clever and right on the ball. And so a lot of it came from her. And I told her I was stealing it and using it. She said that was fine, so.
And then after that, of course, Logan says, oh, sure, threaten the dead guy.
True.
Awesome.
You know, it's funny. I get a lot of comments about Logan, the way it ends. And I said, I'm not sure what you expected. He was dead on page 1. Like, it's not a surprise. It's like I killed him in the book. He was already dead when it started.
He was previously dead. There's nothing I can do about it.
That's right.
The next one is on page 30. At least they gave me a little snippet of it, maybe where it starts. Let's see. It says, my knee jerk, but it doesn't tell me anything else. Guys, if you want me to mention quotes on air, please give me the entire quote, not just the page number.
Oh, good gracious. And I don't even see it on page 30?
Neither do I. Oh, because I'm looking at the wrong book. You were right. It was Playing with Fire.
Oh, Playing with Fire. See, there we go.
Oops.
That's okay. I was going to say it because Ferris is playing with fire and Zoe's Logan. My knee-jerk reaction is to wipe the smirk off his face with a well-placed kick to the nards, but I just stare at him dumbfounded. Yeah,
there we go. That sounds much better.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think we've all met those people in our lives that just, from the first word out of their mouth, we just want to slap them silly. I love sort of that dynamic with her and Oliver. I thought that was really fun to play with. So I knew that it was going to be kind of a, you know, they were interested in each other, but neither of them were entirely sure why, because they didn't really like each other that much at first.
And then the quote on number 23, I'm guessing it's, yeah, I'll grab something on my way home, have fun, try not to make anybody cry. That's always a plus.
That's actually a nod to my husband, who was also military, because I remember one day he came home from work and he was just distraught because this poor girl that worked for him, he'd brought her in to chastise her about something and he just made her cry. And so that was sort of my parting farewell to him then after that for the next few months, was try not to make anybody cry.
That's always a plus.
Yeah. Well, you know, in the military, you have to be kind of firm and...
Oh, no. My ex-husband was in the military, and I remember going to one of his party things for Christmas, and I wasn't even up there, and I was sitting, and I was, like, ready to pop with my first daughter, and I mean, like, I'm sitting there at the table and I'm trying not to cry because you can hear them yelling. I'm like, man, I would be done for. That's all there is to it.
It's intense. I couldn't imagine going to the boot camp where they just get in your face and yell at you. I would just be like,
exactly.
I can handle. I don't think I can handle that.
That would not go over so well. All right. The other quote is also on page 30. It says, normally my asshole radar is spot on, but this was just downright unsettling. So there's that one. Then the next one is on page 39. This is the first time I've ever gotten people wanting to share, like, just physical quotes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at one-liners. As you know, if you read Logan, some of my favorite one-liners are in that book ever.
See, this one says, yeah, it's great until he takes away my shoelaces and makes me start using those little safety scissors.
Yes.
My daughter's safety scissors. See, then the next one is on page 49. Yeah, I don't get the bathroom thing. Why do girls need their own bathrooms anyway? Do you do some super secret lady stuff in there? It's like, yes, we do. We do awesome secret lady spy stuff in there.
Absolutely. And it's true. Girls have a deep love and appreciation for all things that happen in the bathroom, because that's where we like put on our armor. That's where we get ready for, you know, to face our battles. So I particularly spend a lot of time in the bathroom just in getting ready, preparation for the day.
But then we have the other second thing, you know, because we have kids, you know, the bathroom, I can like hide in there and have a reason to lock the door, and people don't complain too much about it, you know.
Yeah, it's like your secret safe space. Got all your goodies, smell good stuff in there. When we first moved into this house, we only had one bathroom. I was actually just talking to my husband about it like 5 seconds ago, and it was miserable, the most miserable experience of my life, because there was never, you know, a break. It was, you know, constantly like, you've got a 5-minute limit in that bathroom and then you were out. Like, it doesn't matter. So the first thing we did is started building more bathrooms in the house.
We have one bathroom here, and if it's a school day and everybody gets up at the same time and my husband has to go to work and we all get up, you've got 5 people all running to the bathroom at the same time.
Yeah, and then you have to work out a shower schedule so that there's hot water for everybody. So it's like mom gets to shower at like 2:30 in the afternoon or something like ridiculous. No, those were not good times.
Yeah, we group showers. The girls go take a shower. They take one, and then I'll hop in, and then I'm like the one that I can get in the shower, scrub, and get out. It's like been maybe 5 minutes. Like, you didn't scrub, and like, yeah, that's what you think. All right. So the next one was just a comment that they loved the humor in playing with fire.
Matched to the same family. So they were saying that those were then the bones of the other missing people. Again, fragments of bones, not remains, tiny fragments of bone. So when the other grave was discovered, the church, the Russian Orthodox Church, was like, no, we don't accept the DNA findings of these, as the Romanovs. So it's been debated for a long time. So in order to finally put them to rest where they should be with their family, they're exhuming the whole lot of them, the secondary remains and the original remains, and they're going to do a whole bunch of blood testing. Again, I don't know that they'll ever be able to prove it conclusively enough that the Orthodox Church will canonize them, because once they do, those remains become holy relics, and there's a whole procedure that has to happen. And again, it's just without having full remains. I mean, it could very easily just be an arm or a leg or one or the other of them, but not both, or whatever the case is. And so it'll be interesting to see what the findings come out as, but I don't know that it's actually going to change anybody's mind about it. So every once in a while, they like to bring it up and distract them. It's so much research. It's amazing to me. It's like in the Avengers where, you know, Iron Man's like, oh yeah, I became an expert last night, you know, and that's totally how it is with a writer, that you get onto a subject and you're like, you know it backwards and forwards. It kind of has to be the way it is. So
I'm finding that out via NaNoWriMo, because I'm doing like 5 different things all at once, and it's I'm fully understanding what you guys go through to write some of these things, especially when it's, you know, fantasy versus, you know, real life and stuff, that you have to basically look up everything, and then you have to have your own set of rules and everything like that. So
it's
via the Distracted series, how hard was it to come up with the rules of their world?
The rules were fairly easy. We sort of sat down and said, you know, what are the abilities? What are the weaknesses? What are the, you know, what are the rules of the world they live in? Because it's not just the Romanovs in that series. They take children from lots of different historical points, and they tend towards royal children because they all share a common bloodline, which is the genetic marker that allows them to time travel in our series. So very, very distantly related from all different time periods. But so the amount of research we put into that was just ridiculous across the board, on all of the characters we used. And it's a whole different ballgame from doing something contemporary like Logan. I think I wrote Logan in 30 days, you know, start to finish, because it's contemporary. Even though it's got a paranormal element, I can say she went and made breakfast and popped her toast in the toaster, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But when you're doing something particularly historical, you have to like explain more. Like, she went down to the kitchens where the cooks were working and they were boiling goose, or what would they be eating for breakfast, or how would it be delivered to her on a tray? And it's just mind-boggling the amount of crap you don't know. I remember having to stop in the first Queen book and figure out, like, did they have forks? Did they drink coffee? What kind of alcohols were available? What kind of foods did they eat? For every freaking scene, there was something that I had to stop and look up. So it took me like 3 months. It was a lot different. So I think it's just a matter of, you have to get it right, though. You have to get it just right, because if you mess up I mean, somebody will snap you on it. They'll be like, there was no forks in 1735, and suddenly you get like a slew of 1-star reviews, and so you have to really make sure that you've got, you know, the details down. Even when you add fantasy elements, I think you have to make sure that the real stuff is really, really real and really accurate, because that's what people will nail you on.
Yeah, I saw that in the Stolen Empire series, where everybody's drinking tea, and then all of a sudden, I think it was in book 3, you know, that they introduced coffee, coffee into it, and then explain where it had come from and stuff. And now she's like hyped up on coffee.
Hyped up on coffee for the first time ever. Yeah, it was great. And it's funny because actually in her memoir, she talks about, you know, the first time she had coffee, and by the time like her reign was over, she was like a coffee machine. Like she was drinking coffee like 6 cups a day. Like it was intense. So,
holy crap. And I'm guessing wow, that's she would definitely be a great customer at Starbucks then.
Yes.
Okay, so into some of the darker things. I know that we've had a couple of comments and stuff about Queen of Always, that, you know, things are pretty light in the first 2 books. And then in the 3rd book, you've got a couple of things that one scene you completely changed from what it was originally that actually happened to her. And then you have the little tidbit that I think you did it very, very tastefully and very, very well.
Thank you.
I mean, because you know what's going on, but it's, you know, it's not like, you know, romance and stuff where you have a boob flopping out here and, you know, something else popping out somewhere else. You know, it's very, very well done. Yeah. So I know a couple of people have asked about when Peter caught her on fire in open court.
Yes.
And I know that I had already talked to you about this, but wanted to ask on here.
Yeah, so that was sort of an exaggeration of something that had actually happened. He actually did attack her in open court, and some very unpleasant things transpired. And that was the turning point where the lords really turned against Peter, and they really saw him as very mentally unstable. And also they sort of realized, even back then, while yes, your wife is your property, you didn't beat her in public. Do you know what I mean? Especially if you were a royal. You could say nasty things together and you could like politically ambush each other, but to actually lay a hand on your spouse in public was very much a faux pas. It wasn't done. So for him to lose it like that, the way he did, it really was sort of what turned the nation against him. The last nail in his coffin is what I like to call it. So I didn't want to be as graphic as what actually happened, which is ironic because I lit her on fire. Like he lit her on fire. It wasn't as graphic as what actually happened. If you're curious, I highly suggest picking up her autobiography. But yeah, it was interesting. And then also I had to transition her from that, you know, into the next scene, which was the love scene. I tried to keep all there's sex from book 1 all the way through the series, but it's all off page. So, you know, you get a little bit of the build up and then it kind of fades to black and goes out. But it's funny, I had some people that read it and they weren't actually sure it happened. They were like, did that happen? Or like what? And I'm like, yeah, that happened. And they're like, oh, okay. So, you know, I will say that if other YA authors, if you are thinking about doing any type of sex scene or something in your book, you need to pick up this series, as well as the Court of Roses and Thorns, because both of you guys, Sarah J. Maas and then you, have done a perfect job of doing this with, you know, without making it rated R, basically. Yeah, exactly. You don't want it to be rated R. You want people to understand what happened, and you want the emotional buildup. But I think that, you know, some things are just best left, you know, to the imagination. So that's kind of where we stood with it. I do keep waiting for my publisher to just be like, no, Sherry, you've gone too far. There's some scenes in the second Hacker book, actually, where my editor was like, whoa. And I'm like, can we put that in there? And they're like, sure, go for it. So I'm like, okay. I'm just seeing how much they're gonna let me get away with at this point, honestly. They're so tolerant of me, so we'll see how it goes. But you know, you don't want to skip over that part of particularly Catherine's life either, because she was such a, you know, a sexual person. And if you look at her history, I mean, good gracious, she had a whole basement full of like sex furniture. Like there's no escaping that aspect of her personality. I didn't want to play it up, which is kind of why we started at the age that we did. and sort of scrunched the timeline down a little bit, so she's still much younger in the book than she actually was when some of the other events transpired, because I didn't want to have to delve too much into the more risque parts of her personality. I wanted the political and the emotional stuff to shine beyond just the sex. So that was my goal.
And the next and the last question was actually about her age through the 3 books. She was, 15 when it started, or 16 when it started? She
was 15 when it started. She turned 16 right before or right after her wedding, and I can't remember which. She came to Russia as a 15-year-old, and by the time she was 17, she was married. And then they actually, historically, they went and lived in Oranienbaum for quite a long time, like 30 years before the Empress finally died and Peter finally took over. So it was much, much later in her life. But I didn't want to have to draw it out quite that far. So I really did condense her timeline quite a bit into, I think there's only a few years between. By the time she takes the throne as queen, she's just turned 19. So in our books. So it's a huge condension of her timeline. And I think that worked for this particular narrative. But again, this isn't, if you're doing a report on Catherine the Great,
don't use this book.
This is not your resource. I'm sorry. So, but some of it is true. A lot of the political stuff, her uncle being brought back to court, the children that she had, the children that she lost, the children that she gave away, all historically, accurate, just condensed into a much shorter timeline. So.
Okay. And I skipped over a question. Actually, I cannot pronounce these people's names. Rena's sister, who was Peter's mistress. If it would have come out back when she first lost the baby of who pushed her down the stairs, what do you think Peter would have done to her?
Well, I think Peter would have killed her. I think he would have strangled her on the floor. He just had a temper, particularly with things that he considered his property. And I think from the moment he found out that child was there, it was his. And in some kind of really sad way, he really sort of had this hope that he would suddenly be able to have this family that he never had before. I don't think he was ever really loved as a child. His history was actually very sad. His mother died when he was very young. I mean, only a few years old, and his father sort of dropped him off with really cruel nurses and teachers for years. So that's what he grew up with. This environment where there was no family and there was no kindness. So I think he sort of saw that child as the first person in his life that would just love him automatically and without question. And so to have that taken from him, I think was another turning point for him emotionally that, really severed his ties with Catherine, because once that wasn't an option anymore, it was like she had let him down. So.
And if by chance that the child would have survived, how do you think that would have changed
the rest of the story? And I think that in some ways it would have calmed Peter, and I think in some ways it would have made it even worse, because he was such a child himself mentally. I think that it really would have eventually worn on him that this child would have been the Empress's favorite. She would have absolutely changed the Ascension Order, and she would have gotten rid of Peter completely in favor of his son. And I think that would have made a huge difference. I think Catherine doting on the baby would have made a huge difference to him. And I think at some point there would have been this jealousy that would have come into play with his own child. So it's probably almost better that it happened the way it did, because I don't think Peter could have handled fatherhood. I don't think it would have made him a better person. I think it would have made him more neurotic and a little crazier probably than he even was. So, and that's saying something.
Yeah. And my last question that just popped into my head, was it actually in her memoirs that she poisoned the Empress, or was that just something that you added?
It wasn't, but I read a couple other documents that weren't, that were historical theories. And one of the theories was that she was poisoned actually by Peter, because she had been threatening to change the Ascension, and she had been cutting off funds to court, and Peter's antics were just wearing on her, and she was pretty done with Peter. So she was actively looking for an alternative heir to the throne at that point. And so the theory is that Peter actually had someone poison her. Just a theory, nothing they can prove, nothing, written down about it. But I really liked the idea that it was Sophie, that Sophie was just like, I am 100% done with you right now, and we're going to take care of this. I knew going into the first book that by the end of the last book, Catherine was the villain of the piece. Like, there was no, she wasn't going to be the hero on the throne that, you know, was perfect and never did anything wrong. She was going to have to cut some throats and kind of turn into a not great person to get ultimately where she wanted to be. And the trick for me was just making people root for her along the way. You know, you see her doing these terrible things and making these terrible decisions, and you understand why she's doing it, and you're kind of rooting for her. So I think anytime you can make someone root for someone that's ultimately the bad guy of the series, you've done your job as a writer, you know? So she was always my villain. She was never my hero.
All right. Well, you talked about her autobiography. Do you know who wrote it, or?
It's called Catherine the Great, and it's by Robert Massey. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. M-A-S-S-E. And great resource. Almost every library in the country has it. So if anybody's interested, you guys can go check it out. I actually bought a copy because I highlighted it like all through. Like, it's ridiculous, the notes I took in the margins. I feel bad because I'm not a book destroyer. Like, I'm not one of those people that like makes crafts out of books. Like, that's sacrilege to me. But if you look in it, it's got all the notes, and it's just terrible. So but it's a good one. And then if you're curious, also there was the BBC did a documentary about her, and then there was a movie from the like 70s called Young Catherine. And it was fantastic, much closer to my narrative than most of the other stories. So certainly not the Catherine Zeta-Jones nightmare. Don't ever watch that. It was terrible. But yeah, the original of Young Catherine was great.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming on, and I hope to see you again for, what is it, Into the Deep?
Into Deep, yeah, is the second Hacker book. And it's... It was an absolute blast to write. I think it's much funnier than the first book because we've kind of have the ground laid, so she's able to really sort of dig in, and we have a couple new characters come in and a couple old characters come back, and a lot more, you know, mystery and a lot more snark and a lot more suspense. So, and a little bit of romance in this one, a little more than we got in the first book. So,
woo!
Yay!
All right. Well, thank you again for coming on, and we can't wait to have you back.
Thanks a lot. You guys are awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. And everybody, that was Sherry Ficklin. And of course, whenever the other books show up, one copy of Playing with Fire will be given away, as well as a copy of Queen of Always, the third book in the Stolen Empire series. And you guys can check out crossreviews.com for the giveaway to enter. And if I can find my right screen over here, I can go back to my events and let you know who's coming on next. Okay, so November 28th at 4 p.m. EST, I lost my hangout. Kathy Lee Cross will be coming on for her first book, So Shall We Reap. Also publishing with Clean Team Publishing. I haven't read this yet, but it looks amazing. And with this, you will actually win one of 2 ARCs, and then somebody will win a t-shirt and some swag. And then I also have a little Reaper coming in the mail, so you guys will be able to win some really cool stuff. And of course, always, I let you guys know what I'm currently reading. I'm actually reading the second book in the House of Night series because I tossed some other ones in between it. So I'm now finally starting Betrayed. I was supposed to start the other day, but decided to read some other stuff that popped up. So I'm going to start reading this again. And if you guys have any questions, or if you're an author and you would like to come on the special broadcast show, please let me know. And I'll catch you guys later. Bye.